Hello everyone. In this video we are going to connect the create and connect the eye controls. So again, we're just going to use a NURB circle and rotate 90 degrees. I'm going to scale it like so. And then I'm going to snap it, holding V, to the eye, the center of the eye itself. And make it something like that. Okay? Then I'm going to duplicate it and snap this one directly to the center of this eye. Vert. Oop. And if I turn shading and wireframe on shaded on, you'll see that I've got it snapped directly to the center vert on the eye. Now I'm going to take both of these and drag them outward. And I'm going to make them about parallel with the knee controls. Okay, I'm going to freeze transformations on both of these. Rename LICTRL, left eye control, and this one RICTRL. And then I'm also going to create I'm going to duplicate one of these. You can create a new one. I'm going to hold X and snap it to the center of both of them. I'm also going to scale it. And then I'm going to do the control vertex, hold right, control vertex. And I'm going to just bring these in and create a little sort of eye shape around it, like the Robin mask we had done on the mesh itself. Now, from here, I'm going to call this one eyes CTRL because it's going to control both the eyes. And before I parent it to this, I'm going to connect them to the eye itself. So I'm going to select the, double check I'm doing this right. I'm going to select the, and actually before I continue, I'm going to do modify and center pivot. And same thing here. And transform display. Okay, so I'm going to select this left eye. I centered the pivot point on it. Just so you know, there's a where was I? Under transform display, you can do local rotation axes. Press 4. I'm going to deselect off of it and display. And I don't see it showing there. What it does is it basically shows you the center eye point where we've centered the pivot. Since it's not displaying the way I would like, we're just going to skip that part. Object display. Nope. So it's not showing up the way I wanted it to, but it's not a big deal because the center pivot of the eye itself is basically what the local rotation axis is. But one thing I do want to do is I'm going to hold D and V, and using just the left handle, I'm going to drag this to this center point because I want to make sure it's exactly center. And then in my front viewport, I want to double check to make sure it's directly center here also. And it is. I'm going to do the same thing for this one in my side view, just using the one handle, and I already know that this one should be perfectly center already, and it is. And what that does is it basically, the local rotation axes should have it centered for us, but you'll notice that it was slightly off of the center of the eye mesh itself, and we know this because of the center a subdivision edge loop here, and it'll make such a subtle difference you probably won't notice, but it is the correct way to do it to make sure that it's perfectly center in there, because when we adjust the eye and we delete the center for the color part and the pupil area, it slightly adjusts the center very slightly, but in order to do this 110% right, we want to make sure that it's centered there. Now, I'm going to go ahead and back in my perspective view, and I have to make sure I'm selecting these right. I believe I select the mesh first and then the eye controller, and then I go not deform, constrain and aim, and I'm going to click the little maintain offset, that's right, the settings box, and I'm going to hit apply. And now, I'm going to select the eye controller, the left eye controller, and now aim and apply. And you'll see now that the eye actually works, and it'll work in any direction. If I rotate it, it doesn't do anything, so I don't need to worry too much about the rotation of it. I'll do that one more time. I'm going to select the right eye controller, shift select the right eye mesh, and do constrain and aim. And now the controller will move that eye also. I'm also going to parent both of these controllers to the eyes control, plural, and now I can move both eyes at the same time. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to parent the eye controller to the global control. Some people like to parent it to the head controller, but in my experience, eyes don't always move with the head, so I can always stare at something out of the left corner of my eye, or in front of my face, and as I turn my head, my eyes can stay locked on that point. So I like to parent it to the global control. If it's parented to the head controller, those eyes will constantly follow that head, and it kinda, I think, can look a little weird. Okay, so anyway, the other thing I need to do is these are already zeroed out, and I can even rename it eye mesh and eye mesh. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to select both the eyes, and I'm going to shift select the neck 3 joint here, and I'm going to press P. Ooh. I'm going to actually redo this. I'm going to break connections, and what that does is it breaks the connection to the eye. And I'm showing you this because if you are making any mistakes yourself at any point, and even in future projects you might work on, parent it first, and then once you parent it, it changes all of it goes off of the parent root, so you can freeze transformations again, in which case I actually don't want to do that. I'm going to leave it as is because I like the way my axes is here. And then I'm going to shift parent, select the right eye control, shift select the neck 3 joint, press P, and that will change all of this also. I'm going to keep it as is. Typically I would like to freeze it out. It should be fine if I do or don't, Let's just try it first and see what happens. Because the rotation on this joint is slightly angled up, the rotation on these will be slightly angled up. Let's go ahead and try aim again. Let's do constrain aim. So I select the eye controller, then shift select the eye itself, the mesh. There we go. And do 2 freeze transformations. Also on this one, and this one too. And this should still work. Okay. And this one, I'm going to select this eye control, shift select this one, constrain aim. Double check it works, and it does. Double check this one works, and it does. And then make sure it's parented properly, and it is. And that's the eye controls. So I can do that again. But what we do is we create the eye controllers, freeze transformations. Before we connect the using constrain aim, we parent the eyes to the head. And why we do that is so when our mesh is going around, the eyes will follow. This would be the same for teeth, the top teeth anyway. The bottom teeth we would connect to a jaw joint, which we are going to get to next. But as far as our actual eye controller itself, they're working just fine. So I'm going to cover that one more step by step. In fact, what we do is we center the pivot properly in the side view and front viewport, holding D and using V and just the transform axes to make sure that we're not moving it all around. We want it to be perfectly centered. Then we do the same thing to the other eye. You can freeze transformations and then parent the eyes to the neck joint, the neck 3 joint, this joint right here in the back of the skull. Once that's done, you can freeze transformations on the mesh itself. As you noticed, it does angle it weird, but if you don't, not a big deal. And the next thing is we will create the eye controllers, right eye controller, left eye controller, snap it to the center vert on the eye, and then drag outwards, and that goes for both of them. And then create another NURB circle or duplicate it, make sure it's in the center, and then I just make a little sort of eye mask kind of visual. Now, once you have that done, you select the eye controller, shift select the eye mesh, and do constrain aim, and you do that for both. After that, you want to make sure that these are all zeroed out, freeze transformations, and then you're going to parent both of these to the eyes control, pluralized, and then we're going to parent the eye controller to the global control. And now just to show you, when I scale this, even the eyes will scale smaller and larger. And that same thing's going to happen to the mesh once we get to that point. So that's everything I have to show you in this video. As we continue doing these, you can also, we're not going to mess with the scale, lock and hide, lock and hide, lock and hide. I'm also going to do that. I don't need the rotate. If you look, the rotate does slightly work, so maybe I will leave it there just in case, in which case maybe I have a little googly eye kind of thing happening. If I were to just rotate one, it shouldn't do anything, but that being said, I'll keep it on this one, but I don't need it on these, so I can lock and hide here, and lock and hide, rotate here. Because if they don't do anything, I don't really need them, and I don't want to waste my time animating them. And then I'm going to do hide selected. Ooh, excuse me, lock selected. Same thing here, and same thing here. Okay, so that's creating the eye control. I know I went over it quickly. This part can be slightly confusing. If you have any questions, be sure to message or inbox me. If it's too confusing, I'll post another video, but I think you should be able to get it. Anyway, that's everything I have on creating the eye controls, and I hope you enjoyed this video. And in the next one, we're going to start to get into the next few videos. We're going to cover creating a jaw control, a jaw joint, and the controller will control the jaw itself. And then we're also going to go ahead and create a we're going to start getting into the facial animation, and we're going to do that using something called blend shapes. That's everything I have to show you in this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and stay tuned for the next one.